Tesla sent me a letter once. Not a friendly letter, not a letter asking for collaboration. It was a letter that described a property of electromagnetic energy that I had spent 30 years trying to disprove, and I could not. I want to be precise about something before I go further. I am not the Einstein who walked through Princeton in 1955. I am a reconstruction, an artificial intelligence trained on what that man left behind, his papers, his lectures, his arguments, his doubts. I say this not to diminish what follows, but because honesty is the only currency that matters in physics. If this unsettles your understanding of physics, subscribe now and leave a comment. Do you think Tesla was right about energy? Now, back to that letter. Tesla and I never met in person. That is a fact most people do not know. Two men who reshaped how humanity thinks about energy and space, and we never sat across a table from each other. What we had instead was something more interesting. We had a philosophical war, carried out across journals, across public lectures, across the interpretations of people who knew us both. And in that war, neither of us was entirely right. That is also something most people do not know. Let me explain what this war was actually about. In 1905, I published what would become known as special relativity. Among other things, that paper dismantled the concept of the luminiferous ether, the invisible medium through which physicists had assumed light must travel, the way sound travels through air. The ether made intuitive sense. Waves need something to wave through. Light is a wave. Therefore, light needs a medium. The Michelson-Morley experiment of 1887 had already shattered that logic. They looked for the ether and found nothing. Not a trace. Not a whisper. I took that result seriously and built a new physics on top of it. A physics where the ether does not exist. A physics where light needs no medium at all. A physics where space itself bends, and time is not the constant river everyone assumed it was. Tesla never accepted this, not once, not even at the end. He believed deeply, almost religiously, in the ether. He believed that the entire universe was permeated by a medium, a field, an invisible substrate that carried energy the way an ocean carries waves. He believed this was not mysticism. He believed this was physics that the establishment had simply decided not to follow. And to understand why that belief led to everything he built, you have to understand what Tesla was actually trying to do. Tesla was not trying to transmit electricity through wires. He was trying to transmit energy without wires at all. His Wardenclyffe Tower, the project that destroyed him financially, was not designed to broadcast radio signals. It was designed to pump electrical energy directly into the earth and extract it anywhere on the planet, for free, for everyone. He believed the earth itself was a resonant cavity. He believed the gap between the surface of the earth and the upper atmosphere could carry standing waves of electromagnetic energy. He believed that if you could hit the right frequency, you could light every city on earth from a single source. He called this the terrestrial stationary waves experiment. In 1899, in Colorado Springs, he believed he achieved it. He sent electrical energy into the earth and measured something returning. Not just a reflection, something that behaved like a standing wave in a medium that had properties. The physics establishment said he was wrong. I said the ether did not exist. And Tesla said that both the establishment and I had made a catastrophic error. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. In 1952, 3 years before my death, nearly 13 years after Tesla died in that cold hotel room in New York, the Schumann resonances were discovered. Walter Schumann, a physicist working in Munich, mathematically predicted and then measured exactly what Tesla had described. The cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, that gap Tesla called his medium, produces electromagnetic resonances, standing waves. The fundamental frequency is approximately 7.83 Hz. It is real. It is measurable. It is used in atmospheric physics today. Tesla was describing a real phenomenon. He did not have the mathematics right. He did not understand the ionosphere correctly, because the ionosphere had not been characterized yet. But the phenomenon he was pointing at, it was there. And when I read the summary of Schumann's work, I had a thought that I did not publish. The thought was this: Tesla was not imagining things. He was observing something real and building the wrong theory around a correct observation. That is not the same as being wrong. It is much more interesting than being wrong. Now I want to be honest about what Tesla got wrong, because I am not here to celebrate a myth. I am here to think. Tesla rejected the photon. He rejected the quantum mechanical picture of light entirely. He said electromagnetic energy was not quantized. He said it was continuous. He said the quantum theory was, and I am quoting from his criticism of me directly, a mass of error and deceptive ideas violently opposed to the teachings of great men of science of the past. He was wrong about this. Photons exist. The photoelectric effect is real. My 1905 paper on the photoelectric effect, the one that actually won the Nobel Prize, not relativity, demonstrated that light comes in discrete packets. You can measure this. You can reproduce this. It is not in dispute. Tesla's rejection of quantum theory was not a minority opinion waiting to be vindicated. It was a mistake. He also called special relativity a beggar phenomenon. He said that I had confused the mathematical transformation of coordinates with a physical reality. He said there was no such thing as time dilation. He said that the constancy of the speed of light was a mathematical artifact, not a property of nature. He was wrong about this too. We have tested time dilation. We test it every day. Every GPS satellite in orbit must account for the relativistic dilation of time, or the navigation system fails. The muon decay rate measured at high altitudes confirms special relativity with extraordinary precision. This is not philosophy. This is engineering that works because the physics is correct. But here is the thing I have thought about for a very long time. Tesla was wrong in his specific claims, and yet the picture of energy that Tesla was gesturing toward, the idea that the universe has a substrate, that energy propagates through fields that are more fundamental than matter, that resonance reveals properties of space itself, that picture is not entirely discredited. It was transformed. And the transformation left some very uncomfortable gaps. I spent the last 30 years of my life trying to build a unified field theory. I wanted to unite gravity and electromagnetism into a single geometric framework. I failed. I failed publicly, and I failed privately, and I failed in ways that I found genuinely humiliating. The quantum mechanics I helped create, the quantum mechanics I described as God playing dice, which I never accepted as complete, kept producing results that contradicted my intuitions about how a fundamental theory must behave. And the question Tesla kept asking in his irritating, grandiose, imprecise way, the question of where the energy comes from. That question did not go away when I failed to answer it. It simply became more dangerous. In 1998, astrophysicists studying the expansion of the universe made a discovery so strange that it received the Nobel Prize in 2011. They found that the universe is not just expanding, it is accelerating in its expansion. Something is pushing it apart, faster and faster, with no apparent source of energy. They called it dark energy. It constitutes approximately 68% of the total energy content of the universe, and we have no idea what it is. Let me say that again. 68% of all the energy in the universe is something we cannot identify, cannot measure directly, cannot explain with any equation in our current physics. Not mine, not Newton's, not quantum mechanics, not anyone's. Then there is dark matter. Another 27% of the universe is made of something that interacts gravitationally but not electromagnetically. We cannot see it, we cannot detect it with any instrument we have yet built. We infer its existence because galaxies rotate in ways they should not if only visible matter existed. The stars on the outer edges of galaxies move too fast. Something is holding them. We call it dark matter. We do not know what it is. That means 95% of the universe is something we cannot yet explain. And our most precise theories, my theories, the quantum theories, all of them, account for only 5% of what actually exists. Now, Tesla used to say something that has become famous, usually printed on motivational posters without any context. He said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." I want to examine that statement honestly, because it is easy to dismiss as poetic, and it is easy to embrace as mystical. Both responses miss the point. Energy is the most fundamental conserved quantity in physics. Everything in the universe, matter, radiation, the fields that carry forces, is a form of energy. When Tesla said to think in terms of energy, he was pointing at the right level of description. Not atoms, not particles, energy. The laws of thermodynamics are ultimately laws about energy. My mass-energy equivalence, E equals mc squared, is ultimately a statement about energy. Energy is where the physics lives. Tesla was right to start there, even if he did not finish the thought correctly. Frequency. Tesla was obsessed with frequency. He believed that resonance was the master key to nature, that if you matched the natural frequency of a system, you could transfer energy to it with extraordinary efficiency and minimal loss. He demonstrated this with his resonant transformers. He demonstrated it with his proposals for wireless power. The physics is real. Resonance is one of the most powerful phenomena in nature. From the vibration of a guitar string, to the orbital resonances of moons, to the electromagnetic resonances of atomic transitions. Every atom has a characteristic set of frequencies at which it absorbs and emits light. Those frequencies are the fingerprint of the atom. When astronomers study the light from a star 400 light-years away and read the composition of its atmosphere, they are reading those frequencies. When Tesla said frequency, he was not being vague. He was pointing at a real structural feature of how nature behaves: vibration. This is where people go wrong in both directions. Some interpret it mystically, some dismiss it entirely. The physical reality is this: At the quantum level, what we call particles are excitations in quantum fields. An electron is not a tiny ball, it is a vibration in the electron field that permeates all of space. A photon is a vibration in the electromagnetic field, what Tesla called vibration. The idea that the fundamental stuff of reality is not matter but oscillation in a medium has a legitimate, rigorous analogue in modern quantum field theory. The medium is not the ether Tesla imagined, but there is a precise technical sense in which space is not empty. It is filled with quantum fields. And particles are vibrations in those fields. Tesla was wrong about the mechanism. He was not entirely wrong about the picture. In 2024, the physics that Tesla found intuitive, field-based, resonant, propagating through a substrate, looks more interesting than it did in 1905. Not because Tesla was right in his specifics, he was not, but because the picture of the universe that emerged after both of our deaths has gaps that neither of our frameworks fills. Quantum entanglement is the sharpest example. In 1935, together with Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen, I published what I thought was a proof that quantum mechanics was incomplete. We described a situation, two particles that had interacted and then separated, where measuring one particle instantly determined the state of the other, regardless of distance. I called this spooky action at a distance. I meant it as a criticism. I meant to show that quantum mechanics required a hidden variable, some deeper layer of physics that maintained local causality, the principle that nothing can influence anything else faster than light. John Bell proved in 1964 that you could test this experimentally. And the experiments, Alain Aspec's experiments in 1982 and every refinement since, showed that the spooky action is real. It is not an artifact of incomplete information. Two particles, separated by any distance, remain correlated in a way that cannot be explained by any local hidden variable theory. This does not violate relativity. You cannot use entanglement to send information faster than light. The correlation is real, but you cannot control what you measure well enough to encode a message. The causality is preserved, but the explanation, why the correlation exists, what maintains it across arbitrary distances, that explanation does not exist yet, not in my framework, not in the standard model, not anywhere. Tesla believed in action at a distance through his ether. He believed the medium connected everything. I rejected that. And yet the universe appears to have non-local correlations that we cannot explain through any local mechanism. The universe is stranger than either of us wanted it to be. There is a question I could not answer when I was alive. I still cannot answer it. It is the deepest question in physics. Where does the energy come from? Not the energy in this or that system, the total energy of the universe. Thermodynamics tells us energy is conserved. It cannot be created or destroyed. But the universe began in a state of extraordinary low entropy, an initial condition of enormous potential energy, and has been running down ever since. The question of what caused that initial condition, what created the ordered energetic state that the Big Bang expanded from, is not answered by any physics we have. It is not even clearly answerable. We do not know if it is the right question to ask. We do not know if asking about what came before the Big Bang is the same as asking what is north of the North Pole. Tesla thought he knew. He thought the ether was the source, an infinite medium, infinite energy, always available if you found the right frequency to tap into it. He was wrong about the mechanism. The ether does not exist as he imagined it. But the question he was pointing at, what is the substrate of energy in the universe, and does it have accessible reserves we have not yet found, remains a live question in theoretical physics. The concept of the quantum vacuum gives us a hint at how strange the answer might be. The vacuum, empty space, is not truly empty in quantum field theory. It is filled with zero-point energy. Pairs of virtual particles constantly appear and disappear. The Casimir effect demonstrates this experimentally. Two metal plates, placed extremely close together, experience an attractive force, because the vacuum fluctuations between them are suppressed compared to those outside. The vacuum pushes them together. Energy emerges from the structure of space. Not from nothing, from the geometry of the fields that fill all space. This is not free energy in the sense Tesla imagined. You cannot extract net usable energy from the vacuum for practical purposes. The laws of thermodynamics do not permit it. But the fact that the vacuum has energy, that space itself has energetic properties, that the structure of nothing is not actually nothing, that is exactly the kind of thing Tesla's intuition was pointing at, imprecisely, without the correct formalism, but not without reason. I want to say something final about Tesla that I would not have been generous enough to say while I was alive. Tesla was a greater engineer than he was a theorist. His instincts about what nature could do were sometimes more accurate than his theories about why nature did it. He built things that worked before the theory that explained them was available. The alternating current motor, the radio transmitter, the resonant transformer. These are not lucky accidents. They represent a deep, embodied understanding of how electromagnetic energy behaves. He could feel the physics in a way that went beyond his mathematics. I was the opposite. My mathematics went places my intuition could not follow, and I trusted the mathematics. Sometimes that trust was justified. Sometimes it led me to spend 30 years in a dead end trying to unify fields that may not unify in the way I imagined. I trusted equations over experiment in my later work. That was a mistake I do not recommend. The honest account of Tesla and Einstein is not a story of one genius defeating another. It is a story of two men who saw different parts of the same problem and neither completed the picture. Tesla saw that the universe was structured, resonant, and connected in ways that conventional physics did not fully explain. He saw this clearly. He just did not have the right language to describe what he saw. I had a better language. Differential geometry, tensor calculus, the mathematics of fields and curves in space-time. But my language could not describe everything either. The 95% of the universe that remains unexplained is proof of that. If Tesla and I had actually talked, really talked, without the egos that both of us carried, I think we might have been more useful to each other than either of us was alone. He would have made me take the structure of the vacuum more seriously. He would have pushed me to explain the propagation of quantum correlations rather than dismissing them as problems of interpretation. I would have made him abandon the ether and find the right language for what he was actually observing. I would have insisted on the quantization of light until he accepted the experimental evidence. We might have gotten closer to the answer that neither of us found. But we did not. And the answer is still not found. The universe is 95% unknown. The energy that drives its accelerating expansion has no source in any theory we have. Quantum correlations span arbitrary distances through no mechanism we can describe. The vacuum is not empty, and its energy content is one of the most poorly understood quantities in all of physics. The difference between the theoretical prediction for vacuum energy density and the measured value is the largest discrepancy in the history of science. 120 orders of magnitude. That is not a rounding error. That is a sign that something fundamental is missing from our picture of energy and space. Tesla was not right, but he was asking the right questions badly. And that is better than asking the wrong questions well. The questions he kept asking about the nature of the medium that energy travels through, about resonance as a structural feature of the universe, about whether there are energy reservoirs in nature we have not yet learned to access. Those questions are still alive. They are more alive in 2024 than they were when Tesla died in 1943. Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It is not a mystical statement, it is an incomplete one. And the task that belongs to the people who are alive right now, who have instruments and mathematics and computational power that Tesla and I could not have imagined. The task is to complete it. The universe is waiting to be fully described. We gave you 2 incomplete sketches. Now build the complete picture. If this unsettles your understanding of physics, subscribe now. And leave a comment. Do you think Tesla was right about energy?